Welcome back. Tonight we're settling into a famine-struck medieval village, one of the long, lean years when grain failed, livestock thinned, and people woke to empty bins and colder bodies. This is daily life during the Great Medieval Famine. Smoke that smells of nothing cooking, hands that shake before noon, and a day measured in what you do not eat. Stay close, we will move through the hours slowly. Maybe quiet stories like this help your thoughts slow down, just for a while. If they do, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if it brings you something gentle in return. And let others know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. There's something grounding about sharing the same quiet moment across so many different places. Now get comfortable, let the day fade, and let's slip quietly back, one step at a time, into the Great Medieval Famine. You wake before the light, not because you meant to, but because your body has nothing left to keep it sleeping. The cold is part of it, but the hollowness is louder. There's a dull ache behind your ribs, a stretched out feeling, like your insides are trying to press through your skin just to find something, anything, to hold on to. Your tongue is dry and clings to the roof of your mouth, and there's a sour taste that wasn't there the night before. You lie still for a moment, waiting to feel rested, but it never comes. What settles instead is that same quiet dread you've grown used to. The understanding that today will be no different. There will be no bread, no stew, not even broth. You can already tell by the way your fingers hesitate when they try to make a fist under the wool. The blanket over you is thin, and your feet have curled up without asking, trying to hold warmth in their own weak shapes. The air smells like smoke, but the kind that drifts in from someone else's chimney, faint, unreachable. There's also the sharp scent of old damp. The wall is still wet from last week's rain, and the straw beneath you has soaked it up. You shift slightly, and the rustling beneath you feels louder than it should. For a second, it almost sounds like a sack of grain being moved. But that's just memory, crawling up from weeks ago, before the last sack ran out, before the rats grew bold. Your stomach growls softly, but it's not hunger in the usual way. It's something deeper. Not a want, but a lack, like your body is forgetting how to ask for food. You sit up slowly, because standing too fast makes your head spin. Your limbs feel like sticks lashed together with fraying rope. You're not sick, not yet. But your body doesn't move like it used to. Your knees pop when you bend them. Your spine resists. And when your feet touch the floor, it's like stepping into water that's just above freezing. You rub your arms without meaning to, trying to bring sensation back. There's no fire. Hasn't been for days. Not enough wood. Not enough strength to gather more. Someone in the village said there might be a tree fallen up the hill. But they also said a family went that way and never came back. Wolves, maybe, or the cold, or both. You haven't decided whether it's worth checking. The others are still asleep, curled like commas under their scraps of cloth. You can't see their faces, but you hear their breath, shallow and slow. You don't know if they're dreaming. You haven't dreamed in weeks. Sleep has become a pause, not a retreat. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders and stand, not because you want to, but because staying still hurts more than moving. There's nothing to do in the house. You already know the shelf is empty, the crock is dry, the floor swept too clean, no crumbs, no husks. Still, you'll check again. You always do. It's how the day starts, not with hope exactly, but with that dull repetition of routine. You walk to the corner where food used to live and lift the lid on the last pot. It's cold, it's clean, it's useless. And now the day has begun. You step outside the door, and the morning air greets you, not with freshness, but with a low, sour weight that settles on your tongue before you even breathe it in fully. There is no scent of bread baking, no hint of porridge bubbling, no wood smoke from cooking fires. Instead, it's the kind of air that clings to the inside of your nose, thick with mildew and something more unpleasant, something faintly sweet in the way spoiled things often are. You pause for a moment on the threshold, bare feet pressing into damp earth, and let your eyes adjust to the grey. It rained 2 days ago, and everything that could rot has begun to. The piles of old straw meant for animal bedding have soured. The corners of buildings weep with greenish slime. Even the walls seem to sweat. The odour of decay is familiar now, though no less disturbing. Somewhere nearby a rat must have died, under a plank or inside a hollow wall, and its little body is starting to swell and sink in on itself. You try not to breathe too deeply, but it doesn't matter. The smell is everywhere, wrapping around you like a damp rag. There are no herbs left to chew to cleanse your mouth, no mint or wormwood to mask the taste. Everything edible has already been gathered, scraped, consumed, or trampled into mud. You think about the meals you used to have, simple, yes, but warm, solid, cheese and onions, barley cooked to softness. Even a heel of coarse bread would be enough to make your mouth water now. But this morning there is only mould and memory. You crouch by the edge of the hut, lifting a piece of sodden straw with the tips of your fingers. Beneath it, the ground is dark and sour, the smell even worse, almost unbearable. You turn your head to the side and gag slightly, though your stomach is too empty to bring anything up. Just acid and silence. You know some people have eaten things like this, boiled old straw, bark, mud cakes pressed with weeds. You haven't done it yet, but the thought is no longer shocking. It hovers quiet and practical, like a shadow you might one day step into. A few feet away, a chicken carcass lies forgotten. Not butchered, just collapsed, skin tight over bone. You wonder how long it's been there. You wonder why no one's taken it. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they did. There's movement in the lane beyond the house. Someone walking slowly, hunched, holding something close to their chest. You watch them for a moment. They don't look back. That's how it is now. No nods, no greetings, no news to share because everyone already knows. It's not just your household, it's everyone. The famine isn't something that came and went. It's something you woke up into one season and never left. You straighten your back and glance up at the sky. It's low and flat, a dull sheet of colourless grey that presses down on everything. No birds sing, no wind moves. There's only the smell, rot and wet and something sharp like the edge of iron. You turn back toward the doorway, pausing one last time, just in case the air might change. It doesn't. So you go back inside where it's no better. But at least you know the smell's there. The door creaks as you pull it open. The wood's swollen from damp and age. It takes effort now, even more than before. Your shoulder presses against it, slow and steady, until it gives. Inside, the light is dim, and the air is thick with dust and cold. You pause just beyond the threshold of the small storage room, as if your stillness could somehow change the outcome. You already know there's nothing here. You knew it when you stood up. You knew it last night when you lay down hungry. You've known it for days, but the habit remains. Maybe something fell. Maybe you missed a scrap in the corner. Maybe, somehow, something changed overnight. It's a kind of quiet madness, this ritual, but you perform it anyway, because the alternative is to sit still and accept. And that's worse. You move slowly, scanning the shelves like you haven't already done it a dozen times. Each one is lined with empty crockery, cracked bowls, and dust that no longer matters. There's a stain on one of the shelves, long since dried, where honey used to leak down the side of a forgotten jar. You remember that day, though it feels impossibly distant now. The sweetness, the stickiness on your fingers, the way you licked it clean, not wasting a drop. That jar shattered weeks ago, the glass swept up, the contents scraped and eaten without ceremony. You bend down to look beneath the lowest shelf, where sacks of grain once leaned heavy and full. Now there's only an old piece of cloth, crumpled and stiff, with nothing beneath it but dry beetle husks and a pebble that almost looks like a bean. You reach for it anyway, roll it in your hand, then drop it. Just stone. In the corner stands the barrel, the one that held oats for so long it used to smell like mornings. You cross the room, lift the lid, and peer inside for the 5th time this week. Just splinters now, a little dust that clings to the sides. You press your palm against the bottom, hoping for grit, for a crust, for anything. Your skin comes away dry. You think about scraping the wood itself, boiling it down, but you already tried. The broth tasted like smoke and regret. You step back and glance toward the ceiling, where bunches of herbs once hung. Marjoram, thyme, wild garlic. Now the hooks are empty. One still dangles with a piece of old string. You wonder if any smell remains in the wood, if the memory of those plants still lingers in some way the body could use. But even your nose is tired. Even your hunger is tired. You check behind the door, under the cloth, inside the cracked jug. You lift the basket with the broken handle. You crouch and run your hand along the floorboards. Nothing. You knew there would be nothing, but now you've seen it again, and that brings a strange kind of peace, like a question asked out loud, answered by silence. You lean your head against the wall for a moment and let your eyes close, just for a breath. The ache in your stomach twists tighter now that hope has flickered and gone out again. But this is the shape of the day. You check the storage, you find it empty, and then you move on, because there's still more day ahead, and you haven't yet decided whether that's a mercy or a cruelty. The pot on the hearth holds something, though calling it food feels dishonest. It doesn't boil anymore. The fire beneath it died before dawn, but the liquid inside is still warm from earlier coals. You kneel beside it, the stones cold under your knees, and lift the lid with fingers that tremble more from emptiness than chill. A thin steam rises, but it carries no comfort. The smell is bitter, sharp in the wrong way, like a tea left out too long in a broken wooden cup. Inside, leaves float in pale water, dull and shapeless. Not the good kind of leaves, not herbs, just weeds pulled from near the ditch, stripped and rinsed and boiled until even their colour gave up. The surface shimmers faintly with oil, but not from fat, just the residue of something old, clinging to the pot's inner wall. You stir the mixture once with a spoon that's too big for the amount it holds. There's barely enough for one. You ladle out a portion and pour it into the cracked bowl you've used for weeks. The liquid splashes, too thin to be called broth, too bitter to soothe. You sit against the wall and take the bowl in both hands. It's not hot enough to burn, but it gives your fingers a little warmth, and that's something. You bring it to your lips, sip slowly. The taste is nothing like food. It's sour and dry at once, like chewing the edge of old bark, or sucking on string, but you swallow it. Of course you do, it's what you have. The grass was gathered yesterday, barely green, mostly fibrous. You'd boiled it down with a single onion peel someone gave you, thinking maybe the flavour would change. It didn't. All it did was remind you what food used to taste like. Your stomach groans, not in protest, but in anticipation, confused by the presence of liquid and warmth. It's been 2 days since anything solid. The others are stirring now. One of the children whimpers, the sound raw and broken, not from pain but from hunger, learned too early. You hear a cough, a dragging foot. No one speaks. There's no point. Words waste breath. You take another sip. The bowl is nearly empty already. You consider licking the rim, and do. Nothing clings. You stare into the hollow of the bowl, wishing there were more to scrape, more to chew, more of anything. The inside of your mouth tastes of damp leaves. You wipe your lips on your sleeve and set the bowl down carefully. It's the only one of its kind left in the house. If it breaks, there won't be another. You think about the rest of the day, the chores you'll pretend to do, the corners you'll search again, the paths you might take, just in case there's something new near the riverbank. Your belly feels heavier now. Not full, never full, but weighted, as if it's trying to convince you the work is done. It isn't. The ache still swells under your ribs. It's just muted for the moment, dulled by the heat of the broth and the act of swallowing. You lean your head back against the wall and close your eyes. The fire is out now, only ash and a few smouldering flecks that won't catch again without kindling. But there's no wood left and no strength to find more. You think about the grass you boiled, how long it will last, whether there's more nearby that hasn't been picked clean by others. You wonder what happens when even the weeds run out, when the hunger grows past bitterness, and into something else. Something worse. You don't know the answer. So you open your eyes, stand up slowly, and step away from the bowl. The morning has just begun. The sound comes through the wall like wind, thin and sharp, but not moving air, just voices. Children's voices, high and broken, sobbing with that particular rhythm that only hunger brings. It's not the kind of crying that rises and falls with injury or fear. It's steady, low, desperate, as if every breath is shaped by the same single word, bread. They must be the baker's grandchildren, or what's left of them. Their house stands close to yours, and though the family once had more than most, flour ovens, even the smell of crust in the morning, that was months ago. Now you hear them every day, clawing at the same absence as you, only louder. Their sobs scrape against your ears, not because they're loud, but because they remind you that your house is silent. Your own children, curled together under the torn blanket, make no sound at all. You look over to them now. Two small bodies, sunken into themselves, barely distinguishable in the shadow. Their eyes are open, but there's no urgency in them. No fire, no pleading, just the flat grey of waiting. One of them blinks slowly, the other doesn't move. They're too old to scream now, too empty. Crying takes strength. You remember when they used to wail at night? When an empty bowl brought tears, when you could still hush them with a promise. Tomorrow, you used to whisper. We'll find something tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and nothing changed. Their voices wore down before their bodies. Now they just lie there, watching the ceiling, listening to someone else's pain, like it's coming from another world. And you're almost grateful. The silence hurts in a different way, but it doesn't pierce like that crying next door. Outside, the wind shifts, carrying the noise further. The mother yells, not in anger, just panic. Her voice cracks as she tells them to be quiet, to save their strength, but it only makes them scream louder. The word bread comes again, strangled and stretched. It echoes strangely in the still morning. You wonder if anyone has any, if somewhere someone has hidden a crust, a corner, a hardened lump tucked in cloth. And if so, would they share it? You already know the answer. Everyone has drawn inward. Like animals under siege, there are no more gifts, no more trades, just the rituals of hiding and pretending. You sit by the door and place your hand on your own stomach, not to soothe it, but to feel it, to remind yourself that it's still there, even if it feels hollow. You try to imagine the taste of bread, warm, yeasty, dense, but the memory is too faded now. It comes back as texture, not flavour. You remember baking it once, the effort of kneading, the way it stuck to your fingers, the way the smell filled every corner of the room. You remember your daughter's laughter when the crust cracked, her hands too small to tear it properly. That was before the rains failed, before the worms came, before the grain turned to dust. You close your eyes and press your fingers into your temples. The crying hasn't stopped. The children next door have found another burst of sound, a last flailing of their small voices. You don't know if they'll still be screaming tomorrow. You don't know if they'll still be alive. All you know is that your own house is quiet. And in that silence, there is a kind of grief that doesn't end. Not even when the crying does. You step out past the low doorway, ducking your head by habit, even though there's no reason left to rush or hide. The sky is pale and low, like a sheet of damp linen stretched above the world, offering no promise of sun, no threat of rain, just stillness. Ahead of you lies the land, your land, though it hasn't felt like yours in a long time. The fields stretch out in dull rows, once golden and full, now broken into dry clumps. The earth is cracked open in long uneven lines, as if it's tried to swallow itself in silence. Nothing grows here anymore. Nothing even pretends to. The furrows are brittle scars, remnants of planting that had no chance to rise. You walk slowly, feet pressing into dust, not mud, the kind of dust that stains but doesn't soften. You used to walk this path with a sack over your shoulder and your hands full of seed. Now, your hands are empty, and your shoulders carry only the weight of remembering. The wheat should have been tall by now, waist high or more, waving in the wind like water. You can still picture it, 100 narrow stems brushing against your palms, the rustle of life in motion. But this morning, as every morning before, all you find are stunted stalks, twisted low to the ground or lying flat like they gave up mid-breath. A few yellow tufts cling to the edges of the field, brittle and dry, more straw than grain. You crouch and run your fingers through the dirt. It crumbles without resistance, dry all the way through. No coolness beneath the surface, no scent of soil, just powder and grit, lifeless and pale. A worm rides near your thumb, sluggish and thin, and you brush it aside without thought. Even the worms are leaner now. Even the insects seem uncertain, as if nature itself has forgotten how to feed. You stand and look toward the tree line, where a scarecrow still leans on its post. The fabric of its tunic flutters slightly, faded from seasons of sun and wind, and now, nothing. No birds gather here anymore. There's nothing left to steal. You wonder why you haven't taken the scarecrow down yet. Maybe because it's the last thing standing. Maybe because you need it there, a reminder that something once grew. Beyond it, the neighbouring plots look no better. Brown and quiet. You used to see other figures in the distance by now. Neighbours hoeing, planting, cursing the weeds. Now there's no one. A field without movement is a grave. You try to listen for signs of life. A shovel strike, a cough, even the creak of a cart. But the silence wraps around everything, soft and absolute. You begin walking the edge of the field, not because you expect to find anything, but because moving is easier than standing still. You bend occasionally to check the soil, to inspect a root or a stray sprout, to pretend you still have purpose here. You spot what might be a wild turnip, buried half in shadow near the ditch. You dig gently with your hands, careful not to break the skin, but it's too small, too young, barely formed. You leave it. Maybe someone else will take it. Maybe it will grow. You doubt it. The air smells dry, not from heat, but from absence, like a pot left too long on the hearth until the water vanishes and the bottom burns. You wipe your hands on your tunic and stare at the horizon. The clouds are there, but they do not gather. The wind is there, but it does not carry rain. And the fields, your fields, remain what they've become, a place where something used to live. You move along the edge of the house, past the crumbling wall where the boards no longer fit tight and the wind pushes in without asking. Behind the barrels and stacked firewood, what's left of it, you keep the traps, 6 of them, set with care each night, checked each morning. You crouch beside the first one, lift it gently and peer inside. Nothing. Not even fur, the bait you used, a smear of old fat dried hard onto a splinter of bone, is untouched, brittle now, flaking off the wood. You set it down, move to the next. It's the same. No scratching, no droppings, no trace. The rats are gone. Either they've left the village entirely, in search of better places to scavenge, or they've been caught and eaten. All of them. By people like you. Desperate, quiet, willing to cook what used to be cursed, and grateful for the meat. You don't blame anyone. You've done the same. Maybe too late. Maybe not often enough. The third trap lies half in shadow beneath an overturned bucket. You tip the bucket aside, and a cloud of dust rises up. You cough, not from illness, but from dryness. Your throat catches the dirt like a sieve. The trap is clean. Triggered, but empty. The mechanism still works, but the rat, if it was ever there, got away. Or someone else took it. You wouldn't be surprised. There's no more shame in stealing a rat, not now. Not when the difference between today and tomorrow might be a single roasted limb or a small piece of meat boiled into grass water. You reach into your pocket for another sliver of bait, but there's nothing. You used the last of it 2 nights ago, lard scraped from an old cloth stiff with age. You wipe your fingers against your tunic and sit back on your heels, staring out toward the alley between the homes, where the ground is bare and silent. No movement, no life. The silence makes it worse. You used to hate the rats. Their scratching in the walls, the way they stole from the stores, the nests in the thatch. You set traps to drive them out. You cursed them, struck at them with broom handles, filled their holes with stones. Now you miss them. You miss the rustling, the squeaks, the sign that something else was still alive and moving nearby. They used to come out at night, drawn by the smell of flour or meat. Now there's nothing to draw them. Even the gnawed corners of old sacks have gone untouched for days. You've seen people dig through the midden heaps for bones, hoping a rat had left something behind. You've done it yourself. But the middens are empty now, clean even, picked bare by human hands that no longer flinch. You stand and walk slowly to the last trap, the one tucked beneath the broken ladder by the shed. You almost don't want to look, but you do, just like always, just like every day before. It's empty, of course. The bait has moulded into the wood. You reset it anyway. Not because you believe it will work, but because it feels like something to do. A gesture, a habit of survival. As you rise, your knees pop again, stiff from squatting. You glance once more at the alley. Still no rats, no mice, no birds. The world is thinning out, creature by creature. You used to be afraid of infestation. Now you're afraid of the opposite, of silence, of stillness, of being the last thing left that can still starve. You walk the road slowly, your eyes low, scanning the edges where mud gathers and old water stands in shallow pools. The ditches here used to carry runoff from the fields, sometimes clean enough for the livestock to drink from, sometimes lined with wild herbs if the rains had been kind. Now they're mostly stagnant, dark, slick furrows where the ground sinks under your feet, and the air smells like something left too long in a closed jar. But you come here anyway. Everyone does. It's where the last scraps of green might cling to life, where a mint sprig or a bit of wild parsley might still be hiding under the shade of a rock, or beneath the rot of a collapsed fence. You walk with your fingers out, ready to brush aside leaves, to feel the shape of root or stem beneath the filth. You crouch at the first patch of dark soil, ignoring the way it seeps through the knees of your tunic. The moisture is welcome in a way. It makes the dirt softer, easier to shift. You dig with your hands, slow and methodical, turning over clumps of moss and old straw. There's a moment where your fingers catch something that resists, and your heart lifts, just slightly, but it's only a tangle of vine, dry and stringy, no thicker than a thread. You toss it aside and keep going. Sometimes there's wild onion here, or sorrel, bitter but edible. You remember finding some last month before the snow melted. It had been enough to stretch the evening broth a little further, but today the mud gives nothing. A few broken twigs. A stone smooth enough to suck, but nothing more. You move further down the ditch, stepping over the rib cage of what might have been a fox, long since stripped to bone. The bones are clean, not by nature, but by hunger. Everything that could be taken from that carcass already was. You don't stop to mourn it. Instead, you press on toward the bend in the road, where the ground dips lower and the moss grows thicker. You kneel again, brushing aside a mat of wet leaves, hoping for the cool scent of mint. Nothing. Just decay. The rot gets into your fingers, under your nails. Your hands are raw now from yesterday's search, but you barely feel the sting anymore. The cold has dulled your nerves, or maybe it's the hunger. You scrape the earth anyway, as if persistence alone could make a root appear. Eventually your palm lands on something soft, a patch of dandelion. The leaves are limp and yellowing, but they're real. You gather them carefully, mud and all, shaking them out with fingers that tremble. It's not much, not even a handful, but it's more than you had before. You sniff them, sharp, bitter, still holding some scent of life. You tuck them into the cloth at your waist and stand, back aching, knees stiff. The ditch stretches on, and you will walk it a little further, as you do every day, because sometimes you do find something. A sprig, a bulb, a memory of food, and when you do, it feels like victory, small, pitiful, and absolutely necessary, because you have to keep looking, even when the mud offers nothing, even when the ground feels empty as your stomach. Because the moment you stop searching, you admit it's over. And it's not over, not yet. You smell it before you see it, that heavy, sour, sweet odour that cuts through the cold air, like a wet cloth left too long in the corner of a closed room. It's faint at first, drifting on the breeze as you follow the edge of the tree line, but it sharpens with each step, until it becomes unmistakable. Death. Not the old kind, buried and silent, but fresh enough to still cling to the ground, to the grass, to your skin as you breathe it in. You walk faster, almost without thinking, pulled by the instinct that maybe, just maybe, there's meat. Even now, after everything, the idea of meat makes your hands twitch. The possibility of fat, of marrow, of something real to chew. You hurry toward the smell, stepping through brambles and broken twigs, heart rising against your better judgment. Then you see it. Sprawled near a shallow ditch, half covered in leaves and mud, lies the body of a cow, or what's left of it. Its legs are stiff, splayed in awkward directions, and the ribs push up like the wreck of a boat that's come apart in shallow water. The skin is torn, not from predators but from knives. Human blades, quick and practiced. The flank has been stripped clean. So has the belly. The organs are gone, hollowed out through a long incision that still glistens darkly in places. There's no blood. That would have soaked away days ago or been wiped clean for boiling. You stand there staring, not sure whether to feel disappointment or envy. Whoever found it first was thorough. You wonder who it was. Someone faster, someone hungrier, someone who doesn't sleep in. You move closer, squatting beside the carcass, eyes scanning for anything that might have been missed. One ear is intact, shriveled and blackened with cold. The tail remains, but it's thin and hard, nothing worth biting. You press a hand to the remaining hide, stiff, rough and cold, but still holding some weight. You consider peeling a strip just to boil it down for broth. It wouldn't be the first time. Hide doesn't taste like much, but it can soften with enough heat and water, and your stomach no longer cares about flavour. You pull your knife, small, dull but serviceable, and slide it under the edge of the skin near the shoulder. The flesh resists. The blade drags. You work slowly, careful not to tear what little remains. There's a quiet patience to this kind of labour, the same rhythm as sharpening a stick or mending a frayed hem. It doesn't feel like butchering. It feels like survival, stripped of ceremony. You manage to cut free a long, narrow strip, tough and yellowed, but solid. You wrap it in cloth and tuck it away. Not much, but it's something. You stand again and look down at the carcass. The head turns slightly in the breeze, one dull eye sunken, mouth open, as if mid-chew. You wonder how it died. Sickness, cold, starvation. Or maybe someone drove it out and abandoned it, too weak to slaughter properly. None of it matters now. What matters is that it fed someone, or several someones, and you're left with what they didn't need. You step back, wiping your knife clean against the grass. You take one last look, then turn away. The smell of rot following you like a shadow. The cow is dead, the meat is gone, and you are still alive, why, barely. So you walk on, still searching, always searching. You meet him just past the edge of the path, near the place where the trees thin and the ground flattens out into marshy open soil. He's sitting on a stone with his knees drawn up, wrapped in a cloak that looks more like a collection of stitched rags than fabric. His face is thin, shadowed by a hood, but you can see the lines around his mouth, cracked lips, sunken cheeks, a nose that's peeled from sun or frostbite or both. He doesn't speak when he sees you. He just watches, still and quiet, like an animal deciding whether you're a threat or not. You nod once, polite but cautious, and would have kept walking if he hadn't lifted his hand and held something out. At first you think it's a stone, a lump of dirt maybe, but then he says the word. Not loud, not cheerful, just flat. Bread. You stop. There's no disbelief in you anymore. No surprise, only the heavy, slow lifting of hope that rises automatically. Bread. Even the sound of it does something to your ribs. You take a step closer. He stretches his arm further, palm open, offering the lump. It's the size of your fist, maybe smaller. Round but uneven. greyish-brown with a dry crack running down one side. It doesn't smell like bread. It doesn't smell like anything. Still, your body leans toward it. Your fingers twitch. You reach out and take it gently from his hand. It's heavier than you expect, cold, dense, with a weight that speaks of things other than flour. He watches you, says nothing, just waits. You lift it to your nose. Still no scent. You break it in half slowly, and that's when you feel it. The hardness, the grit. No softness inside, just powder and small sharp pieces. You press your thumb into the centre. It doesn't yield. Your tongue touches it first, a cautious lick, like testing something you found under a floorboard. The texture tells you everything before the taste arrives. It's dry, not like stale bread, but like packed dust. Grainy, bitter. You bite and your teeth meet something that doesn't belong. A grit that crunches faintly, like dirt, like sand. You pull it back from your mouth and look closer. Bits of bark, something like straw, a few flecks of bran maybe. You glance at the man. He's still watching, and now he speaks again, just 2 words, clay and husk. Not an apology, not a boast, just truth. You don't drop it, you don't curse, you knew somewhere inside. Bread doesn't come in that colour, or with that weight. But the hunger in you didn't care, still doesn't. You bring it back to your mouth and take another bite. Slower this time. The grit scratches your tongue. You swallow. The man nods once, satisfied, and leans back against the stone. Fills the belly, he says. Stops the shakes. You sit down beside him, not to talk, not to share, but because standing takes too much. You eat the rest of the lump without speaking. Your jaw aches from chewing. Your throat works harder to force it down. It settles in your stomach like a handful of pebbles, but it settles. That's more than most things have done lately. The man says nothing more. He pulls his cloak tighter, rests his chin on his knees. You glance at his hands. One is missing 2 fingers. The other has dirt embedded so deep it might as well be part of his skin. You don't ask who he is or where he got the clay. You don't ask if he has more. You don't say thank you, he offered. You took, that's all. You stand again eventually, heavier but not stronger. You keep moving. The taste of earth lingers in your teeth. She walks slowly ahead of you, bent nearly in half, her back a trembling arch beneath the faded shawl that hangs in limp folds over her shoulders. Her steps are uneven, but steady, the kind of rhythm that's learned over years, not days. She taps the ground before her with a stick. Careful, deliberate, each motion just a few inches forward. You realise after a moment that she can't see. Her eyes stay low, her head tilted slightly to the side, listening more than watching. She hums too, a low tuneless sound. Not music, but memory. On her back, slung across one bony hip, is a sack. Not large, but full enough to hang heavy. The shape of it is odd, not grain, not flour. Maybe roots, maybe rags, but something is in it, and that something is more than you have. You follow her without meaning to, eyes fixed on the sack like it might suddenly fall open and reveal everything. You begin to imagine what it might hold. Potatoes, dried beans, a jar of lard, even a small one. Even crusts would be enough. The thought enters you quietly, like a draught through a cracked window. What if? What if you took it? She wouldn't see. She'd hear your steps maybe, but you could move quiet. Wait until she stops to rest, or pass her in the lane, bump her shoulder, lift the bag, and walk fast. You don't want to think this. You don't want to be this, but your stomach clenches in long, dry waves, and your mouth tastes of nothing. She's old. She's lived her years. You try to push the thought away, but it keeps returning, sharper each time. You imagine it in your hands, the bag heavier than you hoped, the contents real. You imagine her turning, calling out, confused, not angry, just confused. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the tall weeds along the road. She stops for a moment to catch her balance, one foot slipping in the mud. Her stick sinks deeper than she expects, and she frowns, muttering something you don't hear. This is the moment. You could step forward, 2 paces, maybe 3, and snatch it. Just turn and run. She wouldn't follow, she couldn't. You'd be gone before she found her footing, but your legs stay where they are. Your arms hang useless at your sides. Something in you, something older than hunger, holds still. You feel the weight of your own body, light now, hollow but still yours, still human, and you realise what would happen afterward, not just to her, but to you. The shame would live in your chest like a stone that never moves. Even if you lived a day longer because of it, that day would taste of ashes. She moves on, slower now, as if the mud has reminded her how easy it is to fall. You let her walk. You stand in the road until the curve of the path swallows her shape and the sack disappears with her. The thought remains, lingering just behind your ribs, but it doesn't settle. You don't know if you're proud. You don't know if you're a coward. All you know is that you're still empty and she's still walking. You turn away, footsteps heavy, and try not to wonder whether she would have shared if you'd simply asked, or whether she had nothing in the sack at all. You'll never know, and that somehow is the only comfort. The church door is swollen with damp, but it gives when you press your shoulder to it, creaking open into a space that smells of smoke and old stone. The air inside is colder than outside, but drier, stiller. It carries the heavy scent of tallow and the faint trace of incense from some forgotten ceremony. The candles near the altar burn low, their stubs flickering unevenly in the draught. A few figures are scattered through the pews, hunched in prayer or sleep. It's hard to tell which. You step inside quietly, removing your hood, your hands clasped more out of habit than faith. You don't expect salvation, not anymore. But you've heard stories that sometimes behind the altar a crust of bread is kept, or that the priest, if moved, might share a handful of dried peas, a strip of salted root, something, anything. Your footsteps echo softly as you approach the front. A priest emerges from the side chapel, robes pulled tightly against his frame, face drawn and pale. He sees you and pauses. You don't speak right away. The silence stretches too long. When your voice comes, it's quieter than you expected. You ask if there's food, not loudly, not pleading, just a question, just a hope shaped into words. The priest doesn't meet your eyes. He looks at your hands, your boots, the dirt on your hem. Then he shakes his head slowly and says, "We have none." You nod once, but he goes on, as if explanation might soften the emptiness. There is only prayer here. That is what we offer now. Prayer and peace. You look past him, toward the altar, the side rooms, the door to the vestry. No sounds of clinking dishes, no smell of stew, just stone and wax. You ask again, not rudely, not with anger, but more directly. Nothing? Not even scraps? He sighs, and for a moment you think he might waver. But his face hardens instead. You're not the first today, and you won't be the last. We have nothing left to give. You glance at the shadows in the side chapel, half curtained with threadbare cloth. You think of cellars, of baskets sealed and keys tucked away. You think of holy bread kept hidden, reserved for lips holier than yours. But you say nothing. You're too tired for suspicion, too weak for begging. You nod again. The priest steps closer, lays a hand on your shoulder. It's meant to be comforting, but it weighs like stone. Kneel, he says, and ask for strength. You don't kneel, not because of pride, just because your knees already ache from yesterday's searching, and because you know prayer won't fill your belly. You leave without speaking further, the door closing behind you with a thud that echoes too loudly in the empty street. The sky's darker now, the wind colder. You look back once, expecting, hoping, someone might follow you out. A novice maybe, with a crust hidden in their sleeve, something small passed in secret. But no one comes. The church stays closed behind you, sealed in its own silence. You walk on, slower now. The hunger is louder than ever, made sharper by disappointment. The stone building fades behind you, its cross barely visible against the grey. You don't hate them, not yet, but the seed of something colder has taken root. Not quite anger, but its cousin. And you know that if they do have anything left, they won't share it. Not with you, not with anyone, only with God. You reach the edge of the market just after midday, though the sun gives no clue, hidden behind the same low clouds that have hung above the village for weeks. The square is quiet, thinner than it used to be. No singing, no haggling, no smell of baked bread or roasting meat. Just people moving slowly from stall to stall, more out of habit than expectation. The vendors, what few remain, no longer shout. They sit behind tables of broken tools, rusted nails, bits of cloth too small to mend with. Some have nothing but jars of cloudy water or bundles of firewood tied with twine. You step among them like a ghost, unnoticed at first. Then when someone finally meets your eye, you kneel and begin to unlace your shoes. It takes longer than it should. The leather stiff, the knots swollen from damp. You hold them in your hands when they come off, weighing them. Still solid, still wearable. You stand and lift them slightly, just enough for those around you to see. Shoes, you say, without volume, without pride. Good leather. A woman glances your way, then looks down at her bare feet. Her skin is cracked, her toes wrapped in cloth. She keeps walking. A man nearby leans against a crate, his boots full of holes, soles flapping at the front. He watches you for a while, then turns away. A boy, too young to buy anything, too old to ask for it, wanders close and looks at the shoes in your hands. His eyes linger for a moment, and for just a second you think he might offer something. A coin, a scrap, even a trade. But then he shakes his head and walks off barefoot. You stand there for a long time, holding the shoes like relics no one wants, surrounded by people with nothing left to trade and even less reason to pretend. Someone finally speaks. An old man, hunched and hollowed, gestures at your hands. Nobody needs shoes, he says, not unkindly. Nobody walks far anymore. He's right, of course. No one leaves the village now, unless they're looking for death or pretending it's not already coming. The roads are too dangerous, the woods too thin, and most of the people here go barefoot. Not because they want to, but because the leather's already been eaten or burned. You look at your own shoes again. They're cracked at the heel, the stitching loose, but still better than most. You thought someone might want them. You thought maybe, just maybe, there'd be something to trade for. A heel of bread, a turnip, even a small dirty coin. But you realise now they're worth less than the space they take up in your hands. You sit on the low stone wall that borders the square and lace them back onto your feet. The effort is heavier this time. Your fingers move slower. The knots come uneven. You don't look up as the others pass. You don't want to see the same faces, the same eyes. You came here trying to trade your last bit of protection, your last real belonging, and even that wasn't enough. When the laces are tied, you stand again, brushing dirt from your knees out of instinct. There's nothing more to do here, nothing more to offer. You leave the square as quietly as you entered, your steps muffled by the dust. The shoes are back where they belong, but they don't feel like yours anymore, just like everything else. It catches you without warning, drifting low along the alleyway between the stone buildings like a whispered promise. A smell, unmistakable and impossible. Rich, hot, sharp with fat, cooked meat. Your body reacts before your mind does. Your breath shortens, your spine straightens, and for a moment you forget the ache in your legs. It's not imagined, not memory. It's real, thick and oily. It clings to the air, the kind of scent that settles behind the eyes and makes the mouth water, even when the stomach is too tired to beg. You stop walking, turn your head into the wind, and inhale again, just to be sure. It's stronger now, carried on a rising breeze that warms your cheek for the first time in days. Someone, somewhere close, is cooking. Not roots, not leaves, not bark, meat. You start moving without deciding to. The hunger drags you forward, like a rope around your chest. Every step feels louder, heavier. You follow the scent through narrow lanes, past shuttered windows and closed doors, each one bearing the look of people trying not to be seen. You pass a dog, ribs sharp under its fur, sniffing the air just like you, then skulking off in the other direction. The closer you get, the stronger the smell becomes. There's a tang now. The edge of char, of burning skin maybe, or fat dripping into fire. It turns your stomach and draws it tighter all at once. You imagine a pot set over flame, a hunk of meat sizzling, turning brown, the juices pooling at the bottom. You imagine broth, thick, dark, steaming, poured into a wooden bowl, too hot to drink, too perfect to wait. You round the corner and see smoke rising in a thin trail from a courtyard enclosed by leaning boards. There's movement inside. Shadows flickering behind a tattered sheet, hung to block the view. Someone coughs, someone mutters. The smell is stronger than ever. Your legs carry you forward, even as a part of you hesitates. This kind of scent draws attention, and attention is dangerous. You slow your steps, staying close to the wall, hoping to catch a glimpse of the fire, the pot, the food. Maybe even be offered something. A scrap, a bone. But as you approach, a figure steps out from behind the curtain. A woman, middle-aged, face smudged with ash, hands wrapped in cloth. She sees you. Her eyes narrow. She doesn't speak, but her posture changes, firm, tense. She holds her body like a shield. You freeze. Your mouth opens slightly. Maybe to beg, maybe to ask what's cooking. But no words come. She shakes her head once, slow, deliberate, and then disappears behind the curtain again. The message is clear. No food, not for you, not for anyone outside that wall. You stand there for another moment, letting the scent wash over you. It's everywhere now, on your skin, in your nose, filling your chest like heat. You don't know what kind of meat it is. You don't want to ask. You've heard the rumours, the stories people whisper, only when they're sure the children are asleep. But your body doesn't care. Your stomach aches with a hollow you can't quiet. You stare at the boards, the smoke, the flame you can almost feel, and then turn away, each step slower than the last. The scent lingers long after the fire is gone. You linger a few steps from the courtyard, not quite ready to walk away. The hunger holds you there, stubborn and cruel, whispering that maybe there's a mistake. Maybe you can ask again. Maybe she didn't mean no. The smoke curls up over the edge of the boards, white and slow, and it smells like food should. Dense, warm, alive with grease. Your feet move on their own, quietly, barely lifting off the ground as you slide closer to the gap between the planks. You lean in just enough to see. You don't plan it. You don't think. You just want to know. Just want a glimpse of what you've been breathing in. The curtain shifts in the breeze, and what you see, it halts everything inside you. Not a stew pot. Not cuts of meat stacked for sharing. Not animal bone or marrow or salted strips hanging from a line. The fire is low, surrounded by bricks. A crude spit turns above it, handmade and crude, nothing more than iron rods balanced between stones. Tied to it, a shape. Too small to be calf, too large to be rabbit. Your mind resists, but your eyes know. You see the narrow wrist, the curve of a shoulder, the angle of a jaw. A boy, or what was once a boy. His skin is blistered and browning, and his limbs have stiffened mid-curl, fingers half closed as if still holding something that was never enough. You don't make a sound, no gasp, no breath, just silence, thick and impossible. Your stomach, a moment ago begging for more, recoils with a sickness that runs deeper than nausea. This isn't hunger. This is a kind of dying that reaches through the air and grabs you by the spine. You stumble back from the wall, nearly tripping on a stone. The boards creak as you shift your weight, and for a second you think she might come out again. But no one does. No words are exchanged, no warning, no shame. Just the fire crackling quietly behind the wood, and the scent of meat rising with it, still calling to every part of your starving body. You want to spit, to scream, to run, but you don't. You just stand there, with bile creeping into your mouth, and your hands clenched into fists. You understand now why the door was closed, why her eyes had that hardness. You weren't just an outsider, you were a witness. And witnesses don't last long when truth becomes unbearable. Eventually, you turn. You walk away, quickly at first, then slower, as the smell follows you like smoke clinging to cloth. It's in your nose, in your mouth. You wipe your lips with the back of your sleeve, but it doesn't help. It stays. Every breath is tainted. Every step feels like betrayal. And the worst part, the part that will stay with you long after the day ends, is that for just one heartbeat, one flicker of a second, you wanted it. Not because you're a monster, but because your body didn't care. Because the line between man and animal is thinner when you haven't eaten in days. You keep walking, not to get somewhere, but just to move, to prove that you can still walk away, that something inside you remains untouched, even if only barely. The sound reaches you before the crowd does, a sudden shout, sharp and broken, cutting through the dull murmur of the square. You turn instinctively, drawn not by curiosity, but by that animal pull toward trouble. There's a circle forming near the well, feet shifting, shoulders tightening, voices rising. You approach slowly, weaving through the bodies, eyes catching glances of the movement within. In the centre, a man is on the ground, thin arms curled over his head, legs flailing uselessly as fists come down hard and fast. 3 others, bigger, not well fed but less hollow, surround him. One kicks him in the side, another grabs what's left of a torn satchel. The third one has the flatbread, a small pale disc half crushed and dirty now, held tight in a shaking hand. The thief is young, barely grown, maybe a teenager, maybe younger. It's hard to tell anymore. Everyone's face looks older these days. No one speaks clearly. The yelling is just noise now. Accusations, curses, the kind of rage that has no words left. You catch the phrase "my last" more than once. One of the attackers roars it like a wound, as if saying it aloud might summon justice. The others echo him without thought. The boy tries to rise, but another blow sends him back to the mud. You watch without moving, your hands hanging limp at your sides. Part of you wants to step forward, to shout, to remind them that he's already starving, already broken, but you don't. You stay where you are, half hidden behind a hunched woman clutching a basket full of nothing. Around you, others watch the same way, silent, still, eyes dull. No one moves, no one interferes. This is what the famine has made. Not cruelty exactly, but a kind of brutal arithmetic. One flatbread, one mouth too many. You glance at the bread again. It's not even whole now, cracked down the centre, dirt clinging to the edge. It won't last, won't save. And yet, it's enough to beat someone for, enough to risk killing over. The boy stops struggling eventually, just curls tighter. The blows stop not out of mercy, but exhaustion. One of the men spits on the ground beside him, then turns and walks away. The others follow, murmuring, their energy spent. The crowd dissolves like smoke, drifting back into its hollow routines. The woman in front of you walks off. The boy stays on the ground. You step around him, careful not to touch him, careful not to meet his eyes. He doesn't lift his head, doesn't ask for help. You hear him breathing ragged and shallow, like someone caught halfway between sleep and leaving. You walk toward the edge of the square, past the stalls with nothing to offer, past the broken crates and empty barrels. Your boots scrape the dirt, and for a moment the only sound is your own steps. Then someone laughs, not out of joy, but something else. The brittle, unhinged laugh of someone too hungry to care anymore. It fades quickly. You don't look back. You don't think about what you could have done. That kind of thought has no place here. Not now. Not when everyone is only ever one flatbread away from being on the ground themselves. You find her near the edge of the village where the path turns rocky and the trees lean in close like they're listening. She's seated on a crate, wrapped in layers of patched cloth, a few jars and sacks laid out before her, on a mat so faded it might once have been blue. Her eyes are sharp, the kind that measure a person by what they carry and what they're willing to lose. You crouch without speaking, scanning her wares. There's a lump of something that looks like dried fruit but smells like glue, a coil of old twine, a tin spoon with no handle, and then beside a chipped cup, a pile of beans. Not many, maybe a double handful at most, wrinkled, spotted, the green-grey fuzz of rot clinging to their sides like frost. But they're real. They're food, and your stomach, sensing even the idea of them, starts to tighten in preparation. You ask quietly what she wants for them. She doesn't answer at first, just leans forward and pokes the beans with a single long finger, shifting them slightly. "Not cheap," she says eventually. "People eat worse." You glance down at yourself, at your satchel, at your belt. There's nothing to offer, nothing but the blanket. You hesitate. It's not much, just wool, thinning at the corners, with a tear across one end. But it's kept the cold from your chest for 3 winters now, and the thought of lying down without it is heavier than you expected. Still, the beans are right there. You lift the blanket from your shoulder, fold it once, and place it gently on the ground beside her mat. She looks at it, then at you, then back again. Her fingers move slowly as she takes the cloth, testing its weight. She nods once and nudges the beans toward you. You scoop them carefully into your pouch, feeling their weight, ignoring the softness of some, the sourness clinging to your skin. There's no joy in it, just relief, tight, controlled, unsatisfying. The kind of relief that doesn't last past the next breath. You thank her with a glance, not expecting words in return, and turn to leave. The wind cuts sharper now, as if it senses the blanket's absence. Your shoulders flinch without it. The cold moves through your tunic, like a hand pressing down. You press the beans closer to your chest, as if their weight can replace what you've lost. You know they won't. You know what you've traded, warmth for rot, shelter for the chance of one more bowl. But there's no room for regret, only calculation, and the numbers, however cruel, are all you have. Back in the lane, you find a corner out of the wind and sit, legs tucked beneath you, body already shivering in the shadow. You open the pouch and look at the beans again. Some are firm, most are soft, a few are already breaking apart. They smell like soil and mould and the slow creep of time. You think about boiling them, about the pot you still have tucked beneath the hearth, the last pinch of salt you've been saving. You tell yourself they'll be better cooked, that the heat will kill whatever's growing on them, that they'll fill your stomach, if not your hope. You close the pouch again and clutch it to your chest. The blanket is gone. The cold is here, but you have beans. For now, and for now, that's enough. You boil them slowly, hunched beside the hearth, feeding the flame with the last dry twigs you've kept hidden beneath the cot. The fire is weak, sputtering in the damp air, but it does enough. The water begins to bubble, and the smell rises with it. Not comforting, not rich, but sour and sharp, like boiled cloth or old vinegar. You stir the pot with a splintered stick, watching the mould slough off the skins, forming a film that clings to the surface before sinking again. Your stomach grumbles, less in hunger now and more in warning, but you ignore it. You've eaten worse, or at least you think you have. You don't remember clearly anymore what food is supposed to taste like. You pour the beans into a cracked bowl, wait just long enough for the steam to fade, and swallow the first mouthful without chewing. It's hot and slimy, but it stays down, and that's enough to keep going. By the time the bowl is empty, your stomach feels heavier, bloated with something that doesn't quite feel like nourishment. There's a warmth, briefly, as if your body is trying to remember how to digest. You sit near the wall, knees pulled up, the empty bowl resting on your lap, like a small victory. But already, a pressure is building. A twist behind your ribs, low and slow, like something caught between muscle and gut. You shift, try to ignore it, but the sensation tightens. A cold sweat breaks across your neck. You lean forward, gripping your sides, and the world narrows to a single thought. It was too much, or too old, or not food at all anymore. Your body begins to revolt, not in hunger, but in fury. Muscles clench, throat burns. You try to breathe through it, but your insides are already rising. The first wave hits hard. No warning, just a surge of bile and beans, half digested, splashing onto the floor with a sound that's almost violent. You gag again, harder, stomach convulsing in dry spasms. There's nothing left, but your body keeps trying, like it refuses to believe the poison has gone. Tears stream down your cheeks, not from pain, but from the sheer force of it. The ache in your ribs is sharp now, like someone's pressing against your chest with both fists. You collapse onto your side, shaking, mouth full of spit and acid. Your arms curl around your middle, not to protect, but to hold yourself together. There's no one to help, no cloth to clean with. Just you, the stench of sickness, and the sound of your own ragged breathing in the dark. It takes a long time to calm. When it does, you lie still, exhausted, the bowl still beside you, untouched since you dropped it. Your stomach is empty again, but not like before. This emptiness burns. It stings like scraped skin. But there's a strange relief in it too. Not comfort exactly, but closure. The hunger is still there, gnawing softly, but for now, there's something else. A weight in your limbs. A kind of dull peace in knowing that your body fought back. That you tried. You roll onto your back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The sour taste of failure still thick in your throat. You close your eyes. You don't sleep. But for now, you stop moving, and that's enough. You're walking back through the narrow path that cuts across the centre of the village, following a line of flattened footprints in the dust when you see him. A child, thin, maybe 6 or 7, maybe more. It's hard to tell these days. His shirt hangs loose, tied at the waist with a scrap of rope, and his bare feet leave soft smudges in the dirt as he moves. He's not running, not playing, just walking with slow, dragging steps, arms slack at his sides. There's no one with him, no adult nearby, just the quiet rhythm of his legs, each movement slightly delayed, like a puppet with a fraying string. You're not the only one who sees him. A few others sit by doorways or lean against walls, their eyes tracking the same shape. No one speaks, no one calls out. He's just there, crossing the square, like it takes everything in him to keep going. Then he stumbles. His knee gives first, then his elbow, then the rest of him folds in a slow, soundless fall. He doesn't cry out. There's no scream, no crash, just a soft thud, like a sack of grain dropped from a short height. Dust puffs up around him, and then he's still, face pressed to the ground, arms curled under his body. For a long moment, no one moves, not a step, not a whisper. A woman a few paces away shifts her weight slightly, as if preparing to rise, but then she stays seated, her hands clamped tight around a bundle in her lap. Another man glances over, squinting, then turns his gaze back to the dirt near his feet. You don't move either. Your legs feel rooted, not out of cruelty, not even fear, just the knowledge, deep and bitter, that you have nothing to give. Not food, not help, not even words. You watch the boy for a full minute. His back rises once, barely. A breath, maybe, or a twitch. He doesn't lift his head. He doesn't try to sit up. A crow caws from somewhere nearby, then silence returns. You think about going to him, kneeling beside him, checking for signs of life, but you know what you'd find: dry lips, empty eyes, a body too tired to stand. And if he does survive the hour, what then? You can't carry him, you can't feed him, you can't even feed yourself. You lower your gaze, not in shame, but in surrender. This isn't new. This isn't rare. This is just what happens now. One by one, quietly, without spectacle, eventually you walk on, as do the others. Not quickly, not to escape, but because standing still takes strength too. You don't look back. You don't need to. That image, the shape of him, crumpled and dusted in earth, will follow you. It's already printed behind your eyes. It will stay there, long after you forget his face, long after you forget what food used to taste like. Hunger doesn't just eat the body, it eats the will. And in a village starving together, even compassion fades, not because people stop caring, but because they no longer have the strength to show it. The voice reaches you before the figure does, loud, cracked with cold and fury, echoing off the stone walls, like a hammer swung without rhythm. "It's our fault," the monk cries over and over, pacing back and forth atop a pile of broken crates near the well. His robe is threadbare, caught at the shoulder with twine, but his eyes blaze with the kind of light that hunger doesn't dim. "We brought this on ourselves," he bellows, spittle flying from his chapped lips. "Not the weather, not the king. It's sin, it's pride, it's gluttony." His voice rings out across the square like a whip, slicing the air between groans of wind. A few people have gathered around him, not because they're curious or hopeful, they're just too tired to move away. They sit where they can, or lean against walls, listening without listening. No one speaks, no one interrupts. He isn't asking for a conversation, he's asking for confession. You stand a little apart, your arms crossed, hands tucked into your sleeves, to trap what little warmth you have. His voice scrapes against your ears like gravel, rising and falling with desperate conviction. "We turned from God," he shouts. "We stuffed our mouths while the poor starved. We let fields lie fallow while the churches rotted." His fists are raised to the sky now, as if daring the heavens to answer. And now he has closed his hand. Now he has sent the hunger to burn the sin from our flesh. A child begins to whimper somewhere in the crowd, too quiet to distract him. The monk doesn't stop. He spins to face the wind, hair wild, face red from cold or rage or both. You ask why your children die, why your bellies are empty. Look inside yourselves. The famine is judgment. The famine is justice. No one claps. No one cries. One man coughs violently into a rag and spits into the dirt. A woman near you mutters something under her breath. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a curse. You listen to the monk, nodding slowly. Not in agreement. Not really. But because there's no energy left for disbelief. You know he's wrong. Or half right. Or just saying what people need to hear. It doesn't matter. Truth doesn't feed you. Lies don't either. You nod again, because that's all you can do. You don't argue. Not because you're afraid, but because there's nothing to say. The crops failed. The children died. The people starve. And whether it's sin or season or silence, the outcome is the same. The monk calls it punishment. You call it life. You both stand in the same cold. Eventually he quiets. His voice breaks. He sinks to his knees atop the crate, hands clasped in prayer or despair, eyes closed tight. The wind rises again, and the crowd begins to drift. Not in anger, just in apathy, like smoke thinning in the air. You walk away, slowly, the sermon still echoing behind your ribs. It follows you in the hollow of your chest, not because it's convincing, but because you need something to hold on to. Blame is easier than emptiness, even if it leads nowhere, even if it means nothing. You pull your collar higher, keep your eyes on the road ahead, and whisper a prayer you barely remember how to finish. Not for forgiveness, just for warmth, just for one more hour. You find a patch of sunlight just beyond the last row of huts, where the village gives way to empty land, and the weeds haven't yet given up. The wind is softer here, blocked by a low wall of broken stones, and the ground has warmed slightly from the day's pale light. It's not much, but it's enough. Enough to make your bones ache a little less. Enough to give the illusion of comfort. You sink down slowly, legs folding under you with effort, until you're lying flat on your side, the dust rising gently as you settle. The soil is dry but not sharp, and the faint heat of it seeps through your tunic, like the memory of something better. Your shoulder rests against a lump, a buried stone, smooth and solid. It digs into the muscle just under your collar, but you're too tired to shift. Your eyes close without ceremony. There's no blanket, no pillow, just the curve of your own body against the earth and the sun trying its best to offer something gentle. For a moment, you almost forget the ache behind your ribs. You almost forget the taste of bile that still clings to the back of your throat. You try not to think. You just breathe. In, then out. Slowly. Shallowly. Your breath stirs the dust near your mouth. You hear voices in the distance, 2 women arguing in low tones, a dog barking, then silence. The warmth is shallow but real, soaking into your sleeves and the back of your neck. You try to stretch your legs, but they don't quite obey. Your toes twitch instead. That's enough. The ground is uneven beneath your hips, and your elbow starts to go numb, but you don't move. You're not sleeping. Not really. But you're not awake in the usual way either. Time slips. Your thoughts lose shape. You think of fire, of bread, of your mother's hands when they were still full. You hear her voice in your head, not saying anything specific, just the soft rhythm of it, the way she used to speak when you were sick. That voice fades, the sun shifts, a cloud passes, the heat lessens by a degree, and the chill moves in immediately to replace it, sliding down the back of your neck like a blade. You open your eyes, the sky's the same, the dust is the same, but your skin has cooled. You pull your arms in closer, curl tighter against the stone at your shoulder. It still presses deep, still bruises. You don't mind. You lie there longer than you should, not because it's safe, but because there's nowhere else to go. You know you'll have to rise soon, to move again, to look again, to pretend you're not already breaking. But for now, this stillness is a gift. A lie maybe, but a kind one. The ground holds your weight without question. The sun, weak as it is, doesn't turn you away. And though your stomach is empty and your hands are shaking, you've carved out 1 hour where the cold is just far enough away that it doesn't win. That will have to be enough. For now. For this moment. Because sleep is too rare to waste, and dreams, even if they never come, are still softer than stone. The buzzing starts low, a faint whine near your ear, and at first you try to ignore it. You're too far gone in the haze of half sleep, your body stretched out on warm dust, your limbs heavy and unwilling, but the sound grows sharper, closer. One lands on your cheek, another brushes your lip. You flinch barely. Your hand twitches, lifting no more than a few inches before falling again. The flies are drawn to the salt of your skin, the moisture of your eyes, the warmth of your breath. You feel them crawling across your forehead, dipping to the corner of your mouth, their tiny legs pricking your nerves like needles. You try again to move, to swat them away, but your arm refuses. It's not pain that stops you. It's absence of strength, of will, of anything left to summon. Your eyes are open now, though blurred. Not from sleep, but from tears. They gather slowly, uninvited. Not from sorrow, but from irritation. The flies seem to know. They crowd toward the wetness, brushing your lashes, clinging to the corners. You blink hard, once, twice, but they return each time. One slips past, lands directly on the white of your eye, and you let out a low, broken breath, more sigh than sound. The tears spill sideways into the dust. You don't wipe them away. You can't. Your hands remain where they are, limp at your sides, coated in grime and failure. The flies move from your face to your neck, then back again, greedy for moisture, for salt, for warmth. You close your eyes, but it makes no difference. They are still there. You try to focus on something else. The warmth of the dirt beneath you, the faint rustle of wind across the weeds, the distant creak of wood as someone moves, in a home you'll never enter. But the flies claim all your attention. They tickle your nostrils. They gather near your lips. You press them shut tightly, but a few still push against the cracks. Your breath comes through your nose in short, uneven bursts. You imagine the people who once lived here with pride. Women sweeping doorsteps, men walking with tools on their shoulders, children shrieking in play. Now it's flies. Now it's silence broken by wing beats. You are no longer a person to them. Just another warm thing lying too still. Another dying thing too tired to shoo them away. Eventually, you stop trying. You let them crawl. You let them drink your tears. You let them taste what's left on your lips from the sickness earlier. Your face becomes just another patch of earth to them, no different from the dung heaps or the open mouths of animals left to rot. There's no indignity left to feel, only sensation, and even that begins to blur. You close your eyes again, tighter this time, not to rest but to shut them out, to hide behind your own lids. It doesn't work. They keep coming. You breathe through your nose, in, out, shallow, slow. There's nothing to fight for in this moment. No one to impress. You endure. The flies stay. The sun fades. And all you can do is wait for one of them to be stronger than the others. Strong enough to make you move. Or stop moving. Whichever comes first, it comes slowly, like the way rain begins, not all at once, but in scattered drops that darken the soil before the sky truly opens. At first you don't realise you've drifted. Your body's still heavy, still pressed into the warm patch of earth, your skin still buzzing from the touch of flies. But then the ground feels softer, your muscles stop aching, the noise of the village fades, replaced by something gentler. Wind in leaves, high branches swaying. You see trees, rows of them, dozens. Their limbs hang low with green fruit, small and tight-skinned, glowing slightly in the dappled light. You reach for one without hesitation. Your hand works perfectly in the dream. No tremor, no delay. Your fingers curl around the apple's cold skin, and when you pull, it snaps free from the branch like it was waiting just for you. You raise it to your mouth, and the scent hits you first, sharp, clean, sour in the way that makes your jaw tense with pleasure. The first bite is loud, crisp. The skin gives easily, and the flesh inside is pale, almost white, dripping with juice that runs down your chin and hand. It's cold, almost too cold. You chew slowly, carefully, afraid it will vanish if you move too fast. The flavour is real. Too real. Tartness at the sides of your tongue, sweetness under it. Your teeth meet the core, and you turn the fruit in your hand to bite again. It resists, but only slightly. There's more where it came from, an orchard full. You drop the core without looking and pick another, and another, each one different, some with a blush of red, some with a waxy sheen, some spotted, some smooth, but all perfect in their own way. Each bite sends warmth through your chest, then down into your stomach, a spreading fullness you'd forgotten was possible. There is no urgency in this place, no one to fight for the apples, no one else in the orchard at all, just you and the green fruit, and the wet sound of eating. You sit beneath a tree and watch your hands as they work, strong, fast, capable. You laugh without sound, mouth full, and for once your throat does not burn. You do not cough. Your breath comes easy. You wipe your chin with the back of your sleeve and keep chewing. The world is soft here, not blurred but rounded, gentle. The sunlight is warm but doesn't sting. The grass is soft but doesn't itch. Time doesn't move. Or maybe it does, but it doesn't matter. Nothing rots, nothing runs out. The apples are infinite. And for the first time in weeks, or maybe months, you feel something like joy. But it doesn't last. Something pulls. At first it's just a shift, a small change in air pressure, the colour of the sky tilting toward grey. Then a sound, the creak of the tree, the dry rasp of a wind that doesn't belong here. Your hand, reaching for another apple, begins to tremble. The fruit in your lap softens, collapses, browns. The taste fades from your mouth. Sweetness turns to ash. You try to swallow, but your throat tightens. The orchard grows dim. The light sours. You wake up with dust in your mouth and flies on your neck. Your jaw aches from clenching. Your lips are wet, not from juice but from drool. And the hunger has returned, fiercer than before, like something insulted by the dream. You roll onto your side slowly, eyes closed, trying to hold on to the last echo of that first bite. But it's gone. And now, more than ever, you know what you're missing. The scream tears through the silence like something physical, not a sound, but a force, sharp and high and human. You jerk awake before your eyes open, your whole body flinching, your limbs tightening, as if bracing for a blow. For a moment you don't know where you are. The dream still clings to you, the taste of apples replaced by something sourer, something metallic. Then the pain returns, and the weight in your gut. and the cold where the sun has already passed. You lift your head slightly, just enough to look toward the source of the sound, but you don't move further. It's a woman. You can't see her, but you know. That kind of scream only comes from a woman. Not a call for help, not even grief, just the kind of sound that happens when the world snaps and leaves you behind. You hear another voice, lower, shouting, maybe a man, maybe two, then nothing. The silence after is worse than the noise. You sit up slowly, careful of the ache in your side, the dizziness behind your eyes. Your mouth tastes of dust and old bile. You strain to listen. No footsteps, no names, no wailing. Just that thick, low quiet that spreads after something awful happens. You think about standing, about going to look, but your legs won't support you yet, and your stomach still churns from the mouldy beans. You wipe your face with the back of your hand, feeling the crust of dried tears, the grit from the ground. The air is colder now. The warmth from earlier has gone, and the flies with it. A crow cries once somewhere above, and even that sounds cautious. You don't ask what happened. You don't want to know. You've already heard too many stories, all starting the same way. A scream, a fight, a disappearance. A child gone missing. A stranger with a blade. A body found without hands. You know how thin the line has become. How people disappear without record now. Not because they're stolen, but because they're no longer needed. Food is food. No one says it, but everyone knows. You close your eyes again. Not in sleep, but in refusal. Maybe someone died. Maybe someone was eaten. Maybe someone found something they shouldn't have, or tried to run with someone else's crust. You picture her, the woman who screamed, bent over someone she loved, hands trembling, voice breaking open against the sky. You picture what it takes to make someone sound like that. Still, you stay where you are, because there's nothing to do, nothing to offer, nothing to change. You couldn't help her. You couldn't help whoever it was. You can barely help yourself. Your body curls slightly, arms over your middle, as if to guard against a threat that's already passed. The sky darkens another shade. The scream fades to memory, and the village continues in silence. More brittle now, more fractured, but still alive in the way that rot is alive. You lie back again, the cold seeping in at the edges, and wait for the next sound, the next sign, the next proof that the world hasn't stopped breaking. Not yet, not today. You sit alone beside the crumbling wall, knees drawn to your chest, arms wrapped loosely around your legs. The light is fading, and with it, the last of the day's warmth slips quietly into the dirt. There is nothing left to do, nowhere to go, no one to talk to. Your body is too tired to wander and too restless to sleep. The silence around you grows thick, stretching across the village like a second skin. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, hoarse and aimless. Then nothing. Your fingers twitch, and without thinking, you bring your hands together in your lap. The motion is familiar, an old habit. You clasp your palms, interlock your fingers, and bow your head. You don't expect an answer. You don't even know if you expect to be heard. But still, you try. The words come slowly, or rather, they don't. Your lips move, but the prayer doesn't form. The beginning escapes you. The rhythm, the phrasing, the structure you once knew by heart. You mutter the first few syllables of something, but it falters. The second line doesn't follow. You pause, mouth slightly open, the taste of dust on your tongue. You try again. "Our Father," you whisper, but the rest slides away like water through a cracked jar. You frown, squint, press your fingers together tighter, as if pressure might bring memory. But the language of prayer feels foreign now, too clean, too distant, too whole for a body that hasn't felt full in weeks. You try to recall the phrases that once came effortlessly. Forgive us, deliver us, give us this day. But the sequence is broken. The words are out of reach. You lower your hands. You sit in silence, staring at the ground between your feet. There are prayers in your bones, but they don't rise. Your tongue stumbles, your jaw tightens. You used to say them without thinking, in the morning, at night, before meals. Now even the idea of meals feels like a lie. What does daily bread mean when there's none left? What does deliverance mean when the sky won't open and the fields are dry and the rats are gone? You don't blame God, not exactly, but you can't find him either, not here, not in this place where children scream and die in silence, where people boil grass and sell their blankets for rot. You want to pray, but you don't know how to speak in a voice that hasn't eaten, a voice that can barely whisper, so instead you close your eyes and think. Not in words, but in feelings. A soft plea, shapeless but true. Not eloquent, not even coherent. Just need, just hunger. Just a longing for something greater, to know you're here. You breathe out slowly, and though your hands stay together, your lips remain shut. Whatever prayer lives inside you now has no form, no scripture, no promise, only presence, a breath into darkness. A silence held open, hoping for an echo that doesn't come. And still, you sit like that, palms together, head bowed, because even without words, you need to be seen. Even if he is far, even if he is gone, even if no one is listening. You're walking slowly through the darkening street when you see him. A figure crouched near the wall, half lit by a weak glow that flickers against the stone. At first, you think it's nothing. Just another bundle of cloth, another shadow. But then the light flares slightly, and you realise he has fire. Not a real fire, not the kind that crackles with wood and warmth, but a small brazier, shallow and rusted, fed with something that barely burns. Scraps of fabric, maybe. Bits of reed or splinters of rotted furniture. It's enough to give off a faint heat and just enough light to outline the man's face, sunken and still. He sees you, doesn't speak, just raises a hand, palm out, then turns it inward. Slow and deliberate, a gesture, an invitation. You hesitate, then you step forward, you lower yourself beside him without a word. The brazier's heat is barely noticeable at first, more suggestion than sensation. But after a few seconds, your hands stop aching, and the tightness in your fingers begins to ease. You hold them out instinctively, palms hovering over the shallow bowl of flickering coals. The warmth doesn't reach your chest, doesn't undo the cold in your feet, but it gathers in your wrists and knuckles and settles there like a kindness. The man doesn't look at you. He stares into the fire, eyes half-lidded, the curve of his mouth still. His clothes are threadbare but carefully wrapped, layered in a way that shows experience. He's done this before, found the edge of warmth and sat there in silence. He doesn't ask your name, doesn't ask what you've eaten. You don't ask either. There's something sacred about the quiet between you. Not peace, not trust, just agreement. That the fire belongs to both of you, at least for now. That you will share it without touching, without talking, without needing anything more than the heat. The flames sputter once, rising an inch, then falling again. You shift slightly, closer to the rim of the brazier, and the man doesn't object. You glance at his face, a sharp jaw, hollow cheeks, lips chapped and cracked. His eyes are distant but open, and you wonder what he's seeing. Maybe memory, maybe nothing. You wonder what he sees when he looks at you. Not that it matters. In this moment, you're not strangers or neighbours or beggars. You're just bodies leaning toward heat, that's all. The fire dims as the last scrap burns down. Neither of you moves to feed it. You know there's not much left, and what little remains must be stretched across the night. Still, you sit there, even as the glow fades and the cold returns in slow waves across your back. Your hands are warmer now. Not warm exactly, but not numb. That's something. The man exhales softly, not a sigh, not a word. Just breath, and you do the same. When he finally shifts and pulls his blanket tighter around his knees, you take that as your cue. You nod once, more to yourself than to him, and rise slowly, joints creaking, skin already missing the heat. He doesn't look up. You don't say goodbye. There's nothing to say. The fire was shared. The silence was enough. You walk away with your fingers still tingling, and for a little while, that's enough to keep going. The light begins to fade before you're ready for it. The sky, already pale and streaked with thin clouds, darkens not with drama, but with quiet finality. There's no sunset to speak of, just a dull thickening of grey that slowly presses down over the village like a wet cloth. You look up and try to guess the hour, but time has stopped meaning much. It's not late, not really, but winter cheats the day. The sun vanishes early, retreating without apology, and the cold seeps in as soon as it's gone. The shadows lengthen without changing shape. You watch the last hints of colour drain from the rooftops and the mud paths until everything becomes the same flat shade of nothing. There is no golden hour, no warning, just the sudden understanding that it's night, even though the day never really started. You pull your arms tighter around your chest and try to keep walking, but the air has changed. It's heavier now, sharper, like it's pushing against your skin. The warmth from the brazier is long gone, absorbed into memory. Your fingers have stiffened again, and your toes curl inside your shoes, instinctively guarding the last of their heat. You hear a door shut in the distance, the wooden thud muffled by snow-packed earth. People are vanishing behind walls, wrapping themselves in whatever rags they have left, preparing for the long hours ahead. No one stays out after nightfall, unless they have to. Or unless there's nowhere left to go. The streets empty themselves slowly. Then all at once, what's left behind is wind and wood smoke and silence. You find yourself drawn to the places with flickers of light, a window glowing faintly, a chimney breathing out a thin coil of smoke. You don't approach, you just watch from a distance, letting your eyes rest on something warm, even if it's not yours. For a moment, you imagine being inside, seated near a low fire, palms open to the glow, eyes half closed, in peace. The fantasy doesn't last. The hunger interrupts. It always does. You blink and shift your weight, the cold making even small movements feel deliberate. You wonder how long the night will last. How many hours until the sky begins to lighten again? You don't have a clock. No bells ring anymore. There's only the guessing, the waiting, the endless pacing between thoughts. You sit on a flat stone near the corner of a shed, wrapping your arms around your knees, chin tucked down to your chest. The darkness is full now. Not deep or rich, but thin and colourless, like the kind that comes from overcast moons and shuttered windows. There are no stars, no patterns in the sky to follow, only the cold, only the quiet. You let your eyes close, not in sleep, but in withdrawal. The night has come early, and it will stay longer than you want it to. There is no fire for you tonight, no supper, no words, just the stone under your thighs, the wind brushing your ear like a whisper, and the weight of darkness sitting gently on your back. The rags are stiff with cold and dirt, folded into a crude pile near the back wall where you left them earlier in the day. They aren't really clothes anymore, just strips of fabric torn from old sacks, blankets too thin to be called such, scraps of burlap with frayed edges, and the smell of mildew soaked deep into their threads. You pick them up one by one, shaking off the larger clumps of soil, trying to unfold them without tearing what little remains. The largest piece, a shredded sack once used for storing grain, becomes your cloak. You wrap it around your shoulders, across your chest, knotting the corners tightly under your arms to hold it close. The fabric scratches your neck, but you barely feel it. Your skin is too cold to register pain. The wind finds the holes immediately. It weaves through the tears and open seams, like it knows where to go, curling around your ribs, sliding beneath the folds, poking through gaps at your elbows and spine. You pull the cloth tighter, but it makes no difference. There are too many places where the warmth escapes, too few where it can gather. You sit with your back to the wall, knees drawn up. One strip of cloth pulled over your legs, another over your head. The position is familiar now, a posture of defence not from violence, but from the air itself. You rock slightly, not to comfort yourself, but to create friction, to stir some tiny heat inside your chest. The cold is not sharp anymore. It's dull, patient. It wraps around you like water, slowly sinking deeper with every breath. Your teeth begin to chatter, not loudly, not in rhythm, just soft clicking like pebbles against each other. Your jaw aches from the tension. Your fingers, tucked under your arms, have gone numb again, and your toes burn with the dull fire that comes before they go quiet. You try to shift your weight, thinking it might help, but the effort costs more warmth than it brings. You stay still instead, letting the rags fall as they may, hoping the folds hold the heat for just a little longer. The air smells of smoke from distant fires and the rot of old straw. It clings to the inside of the sack, thick and sour. You breathe through your mouth because your nose has stopped working. The wind moans softly through the gap in the boards above you, and you press your forehead to your knees. You think about your blanket, the one you traded, the one that used to hold back the night. It wasn't whole, it wasn't thick, but it stayed in place. These rags slide. These rags let the cold in like a guest. You try not to regret it. You tell yourself the beans were worth it, even if they betrayed you. You tell yourself it wasn't a mistake, but the shivering says otherwise. It has its own voice, its own argument, one that lives in your bones and makes itself heard with every involuntary shake. You sit like that until your thoughts stop forming full shapes, until the chill becomes the only thing you can feel. The rags cover your body, but they do not protect you, and the night has only begun. The sound comes slowly, like a crack in the silence. Faint at first, then rhythmic. You freeze. At first you think it might be the wind again, teasing the boards behind you, or maybe the creaking of wood under pressure. But then it happens again. A small wet crunch, then another. You open your eyes in the dark, though it makes no difference. The blackness is complete now. Night has settled like a lid, and you can't even see your own hands beneath the rags. But you can hear it, chewing, just a few steps away. Not loud, not hurried, measured. Someone is eating, slowly, purposefully, teeth grinding against something brittle, something that cracks between the molars before softening with spit. You don't move, you don't speak, you just listen. You can't tell who it is. There were others in the shadows when you first settled against the wall, shapes you passed without looking at, figures hunched in corners, hidden beneath coats or sacks or shawls. No one talked, no one asked names. It's not a fire circle. It's not a home. Just a stretch of wall where the wind doesn't bite as hard. Whoever's next to you must have found something. A crust maybe, a root, something dried and almost forgotten. But not dead. Not yet. You imagine them holding it with shaking hands, staring at it for hours before giving in. Or maybe they didn't wait at all. Maybe they pulled it from a sleeve or a pouch or the lining of a boot the moment the sun went down. You listen to the chewing, wet now, more saliva than crunch, and you're glad it's not you. The smell isn't strong, but it's there, faint, sour, maybe a little burnt. It mixes with the scent of old smoke and bodies pressed too close for too long. Your stomach tightens, not with hunger exactly, but with a kind of heatless envy. Not because they're eating and you're not, but because they had something left to hide, something left to choose. You wonder what it is. Bread, meat, something worse. You try not to think about it. The dark makes everything too vivid. You imagine teeth gnawing not on crust, but on something soft, something that used to move. You flinch at the thought, but you don't ask. You don't turn your head, because it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, they found it, and you didn't. That's all the story you need. The chewing slows, a swallow, then silence again. No gratitude, no sigh, just the end of the sound. You pull the rags tighter around yourself, as if they might shield you from what you just heard. Your eyes are still open. The darkness hasn't lifted. The cold is worse than ever. But you don't feel entirely alone now. You're still one of them. One of the ones still listening, still alive, still afraid. You shift slightly to ease the pressure on your hip and try to ignore the memory of that chewing. You tell yourself you're not angry. You tell yourself you're not curious. But most of all, you tell yourself this. At least it wasn't you. And that for tonight is enough. You lie flat on your side, knees drawn up to your chest, arms folded tightly beneath the rags that barely cover your frame. The stone beneath you is cold, and the air around you is colder, but neither compares to the emptiness inside. Your stomach no longer growls, it's gone quiet, like a fire that's burned through all its fuel and has nothing left to smoke. There's no pain, not anymore, just absence, a slow, heavy stillness that spreads through your ribs, your back, your limbs. You press your face deeper into the scratchy fabric of your makeshift bedding, a sack, a coat sleeve, a patch of wool stiff with dust, and close your eyes. Not because you're tired, not because you expect sleep, but because the dark behind your lids is easier to look at than the dark around you. Your breath is slow, careful. Each inhale feels like pulling cold water through a cracked reed. You try not to shiver, not because you fear the cold, but because even shivering takes energy you no longer have. Your thoughts come slow and broken, like stepping stones sunk too deep in a muddy river. You reach for memories, but they slip away before they form. There was once a room maybe, a voice, a bowl, something warm, but all that's left now are fragments without weight, a feeling of softness, a smell that might have been bread, a name you can't quite remember. Even your own skin feels far away, like it belongs to someone else. Hunger has hollowed you out, not just your body, but your mind, until the only thing left is stillness. You squeeze your eyes shut tighter, as if that might quiet the sensations that remain, the chill in your jaw, the grit on your tongue, the stiffness in your legs. You picture nothing. You aim for blankness. No orchard, no prayer, no food, just a place without need. A pause. You hear someone breathing nearby, slow and raspy. You hear wood creak somewhere far off. You hear your own pulse, dull and steady, ticking away inside your ears. You try to focus on that. A rhythm. Something to hold on to. You press your tongue to the roof of your mouth to chase away the taste of sickness. But there's no saliva left to move. Just dryness. Just dust. You don't sleep. You don't even drift. You just stay there, curled in the dark, with your eyes closed, waiting for the hours to pass. If you could sleep, you would. But sleep is a luxury. Sleep belongs to the full. You have emptiness. And the only way to bear it is to close your eyes and pretend that it's not there. Pretend your body is whole. Pretend your belly is quiet because it is satisfied. Pretend that when you open your eyes again, the sky will be pink with morning, and the cold will be softer, and someone, anyone, will offer you something warm. But you don't open them. Not yet, because hunger is loudest when you look it in the face, and tonight you can't afford to listen. That was one day. Just one. No battles, no executions, no war, just hunger. The slow, ordinary kind that takes everything quietly. The kind that doesn't scream, but whispers you into silence. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking through it. Not everyone could. Not everyone would want to. But sometimes remembering matters. Not because we can fix the past, but because we carry its shape with us. Now rest if you can. Close your eyes, settle in, and let the cold pass over you like wind through dry fields. Somewhere, far from here, there is warmth, there is bread. But for now, let there be stillness, just for tonight.